So, who is the absolute worst person in Congress? Not the worst person, but the worst congressperson. I know it's stiff competition with 435 of these SOBs on Capitol Hill, but I have my nominee, and it's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And not for
Say not so.
I say so, but not for the reasons you think. Not because she's an extreme left-winger, not because she wants to tank the U.S. economy with her Green New Deal and condemn millions of people to poverty and death or worse, having to drive lousy cars or take the train. Ugh. But because of the way she treats her own constituents. She's just really bad at her job. Gents, I saw this story in New York Post on Monday where they talked to Democrats in her congressional district, and let me give you a little sampling of what they had to say. Scott, I want you to pay attention. I'm going to give this first question to you. Anthony Vitaliano, excuse me, he's a retired cop. He was at a local meeting that is usually attended by local politicians, including the previous congressman of that district. He said, I want AOC or a representative from AOC to be here. You know, I appreciate what she's doing, but she has to represent us, because she didn't show up and she didn't send anybody from her office to show up for this thing. Roxanne Delgado, who's a local activist there in her district, she was quoted saying, I thought AOC would be our savior. Well, there's your problem in living to a politician. But that's not the case. She also tweeted, no email or contact information on AOC's webpage except for a DC number, not no local office number, which was where the voicemail was full. So nobody's even listened to the voicemail, and no one picks up the phone after repeated attempts. The Post also reports that they made several calls to both the Washington and Queens offices last week. The same recording of both numbers gives AOC's website and doesn't allow callers to leave a message. And this is, reporters. This publicity hound won't talk to reporters or even let them leave a voicemail. Scott, you're the one of the three of us who's actually done some retail politics. What's your take on this?
My guess is that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, first of all, was shocked to find out that anybody's still using the telephone in 2019 and didn't understand why you should even have to answer a telephone. Nobody telephones. You tweet. You post something to Instagram. If you want to get a hold of her, then just kind of downvote her on one of the social media platforms that she's using. And by the way, she could do this if she really wanted to deliver good constituent service. I'm not saying she could get rid of the phones or not have an office or not have people show up. But when I was a subscriber to T-Mobile's telephone service, if I had a problem that I couldn't figure out, I would tweet to John Legary, who I don't know how you pronounce his name, but he's the CEO of the company. I would tweet him. Within minutes, I would get a response from one of their people who would ask me to do a direct message to them so that I could communicate with them, and they would solve the problem. So they were doing customer service on Twitter. If they can do that, and if Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wants to be this cutting edge, social butterfly, she could do that too. But at the root of it, I don't think she ran to serve, but rather to be served and to aggrandize herself. You would think that somebody who was a bartender would understand service, would understand that there are people waiting to talk to you, and people get frustrated if they have to wait too long. They want the beverage now.
I do.
As I said in our backstage meeting, the number one job of a congressperson is to raise money to run for re-election. The number two job is constituent services. And that's a combination of serving as the government complaint window and the government handout window. And if you're not there to take those requests, because people are having problems all the time, and they think the way to solve the problem is to contact your representative in government. If you're not there to take that, she may wind up being the most popular politician in the country who can't get reelected in her own district.
Well, it's funny you should mention her popularity because, Scott, this leads right into my next question for Bill. Her poll numbers nationally kind of suck. They've been on the decline since she hit her high point last fall. It's gotten so bad that Vox, I don't know if you read Vox, it's sort of a infotainment site for young adults.
Oh, yeah.
For people who can't read.
Pretty much. They've got lots of nifty graphics. Zach Beauchamp there at Vox, who, by the way, was one of these idiots peddling that Palestine bridge connecting Gaza the West Bank. Just total nonsense. He had to write a piece explaining that Republicans are to blame for AOC's bad poll numbers. He said, so what's going on? Ocasio-Cortez herself has a preferred explanation that she's been vilified on Fox News and in other conservative outlets, and that they've driven her national approval rating down. If this theory is right, then you'd expect her negative favorables to be driven almost entirely by Republicans detesting her and everyone else not being as familiar with her. And that's all a quote from Zach. Bill, I think what Zach is saying here is that A, Republicans are better informed than Democrats or independents, and B, the best informed people like her the least. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's awful fair. There's a lot here that's going on. First of all, I personally am prepared to contribute whatever money I find available to ensure her reelection in 2020. In fact, I think I'm in favor of starting some kind of perpetual trust to deliver millions of dollars until her kids are running.
Or the heat death of the universe, really.
Yeah, that's right. She's the gift that keeps on giving. There's a lot here that's interesting, but the thing that's the most interesting and the least surprising is if you're lazy and you want power and fame, you go into politics. And if you're really lazy and you want power and fame, you go into politics and don't even do the politics. I mean, this is really it, right? This is a person whose first act after being electioned, that's probably a better way of putting it, was
I'm stealing that. I love it.
Was to go for a long rest period of self-discovery and so on. And you can make a pretty compelling case here that, not that it's going to matter to progressives or Democrats, but you can make I think there should be a federal suit involved, that she is in violation of her oath of office, in that the job of a representative is to represent the people, and if the people cannot reach their representative, then that person is in violation of their oath of office. And pretty simple, really. If you have a representative who you can't reach, that's not a representative, but they don't care, of course. I personally think the great thing about AOC is, as I've said before, the reason she's so beneficial to the conservatives and the patriots in this country, but I repeat myself, is because she's too stupid to know that she's not supposed to tell people what she's actually thinking. And so I think we ought to send her a very, very well written, very carefully written invitation to be the first annual awardee of the Dunning-Kruger Award for professional politicians.
You may have to explain Dunning-Kruger.
And have her know that she is the first Dunning-Kruger award recipient, and what a high honor that would be, because she would accept it. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a psychological phenomenon reported by two psychologists whose last names were Dunning and Kruger, and or it might have been, I thought maybe perhaps it was Elizabeth Stanton Dunning-Kruger, but it turns out it was David Dunning.
It was two, yeah.
David Dunning and Justin
Stanton
Kruger.
Dunning-Kruger, yeah.
Right. And basically what they said is that if you're really stupid, you have no way of knowing how stupid you are. You perform your job and think that you're performing your job as well as, or better than, usually better than other people, because you simply don't have the cognitive ability to realize how far short you're falling. And this is the Democratic. I mean, it's like Nancy Pelosi has busts of Dunning-Kruger on her piano. This is, what do you say? But this is it. When you're so stupid, you don't realize how stupid you are. And the converse of this is people who are acutely. What Dunning-Kruger found was that people who were exceptionally intelligent tended to underestimate their own abilities. In other words, they tended to undervalue them because they're so intelligent. They realize that there are so many things that they don't know. And the inverse of this is somebody who's so dense that they think they're doing the world's greatest job, and and cannot be convinced otherwise because they're not smart to figure out what this job actually entails and what competence looks like. So I think we ought to invite her to the Dunning-Kruger ceremony, and I swear to God that if you could get the message to her without it leaking to the press, she would show up and be delighted to accept the Dunning-Kruger Award.
She's the first Dunning-Kruger Fellow, the 2019 Dunning-Kruger Fellow.
Exactly, and then she would do her acceptance speech on why the term fellow is sexist, and the universe would then simply implode into a knot of perfect irony. So anyway, that's AOC, and I think we should have more awards like this. I do miss the Fiske Awards from the early days, but that's before Charles Johnson fell off his bicycle and hit a rock on his head and split the rock. So anyway, that's that. Yeah, that's what I think of AOC.
All right. Yeah, AOC may be proof that the Peter Principle was positively Panglossian, and I'll let folks look up both of those references after the show. I'll tell you who I was thinking of when I read this story in the New York Post was another New York politician, New York City politician, a Republican, believe it or not, back when New York still elected those on occasion. It was Alphonse D'Amato, who started off, I believe, as a New York City congressman and eventually went on to serve a couple of terms in the Senate. And D'Amato was so good, he was so solid on constituent service that his nickname was Senator Pothole, because you could call his office with a complaint about a pothole on your street, and the senator was not going to take your call personally, but he had somebody to make sure that there would be a couple of guys out there with asphalt and shovels filling in that pothole as soon as was humanly or maybe politically possible. And that's what you got to do, especially in a city like New York where they've come to expect that sort of constituent service. So I guess what I'm trying to say about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is, or Cortex, excuse me, I hate it when I mispronounce her name, is that as a congressperson, she's an excellent social media personality. And there is your right angle on that. Brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. If you like these shows, please click on over to Bill Whittle. Become a member. We'd love to have you on board as one of our citizen producers. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.